Some people feel as though they were born into the wrong generation, as though there is something inside them that simply does not fit the world around them. They watch people their own age understand rules they were never taught, connecting with things that make absolutely no sense to them. And little by little, they begin to wonder, is the problem the world? Or are they the problem? They do not hate their own generation. They simply cannot recognize themselves in it. And that is what we are going to understand today. Welcome to Everyday Mind. There are certain patterns in today's generation that these people know all too well. Someone records a video, but never truly experiences the moment they are recording. Someone posts a strong opinion about a subject after reading nothing more than the headline. Someone copies the same gesture, the same dance, the same phrase they have already seen 100 times that day. And this person quietly wonders, is that who they really are? Or is it simply who the app is asking them to become? 40 minutes of videos, and not a single memorable face. People begin to look the same. The same tone of voice, the same way of laughing, the same way of talking about their own lives as though they were products being advertised. It feels like watching copies of copies. And that frightens them more than they would like to admit. A new song plays everywhere, created to last for 15 seconds in a video, not to last an entire lifetime. They listen to it and feel nothing. And they think, where are the songs that sounded as though they had been written by someone who had actually lived through what they were singing about? At a party, they notice that nobody is truly there. Half the people are filming the moment instead of actually being inside it. They laugh, even when nothing feels funny. They smile, nod their head, and quietly think, will anyone here actually remember this night? Or will they only remember posting about it? They begin telling a friend something important. Halfway through the sentence, the friend looks at their phone. Not because they are cruel, it has simply become a reflex. Everyone's attention has been trained to last only a few seconds, and they feel that reality deeply whenever they try to be heard for longer than that. They open up about a difficult day. The response is something like, wow, that's rough, followed by an emoji. It is not necessarily a lack of love. It is just that people no longer seem to know how to remain inside someone else's pain long enough to truly understand it. On a Friday night, they decide not to go out. They open their phone anyway and see pictures of smiling people gathered somewhere crowded, and they wonder, am I wasting my life, or am I simply tired of living its edited version? This is not nostalgia for the past. It is the feeling of watching an entire generation being pushed toward becoming the same person, just like everyone else. Predictable, yet somehow difficult to understand. As the philosopher Henry David Thoreau once wrote, most people live lives of quiet desperation, too occupied to stop and ask whether this is truly the life they would have chosen. When these people try to explain what they feel, they are usually met with ready-made interpretations. They are told that they are old-fashioned, that they are trapped in the past, that they just need to loosen up or enjoy life while they are still young. Sometimes, people assume it is arrogance, as though they believe they are superior, deeper, or more mature than everyone else. Or they are simply labeled as shy, uninterested, or socially awkward. But maybe it is none of those things. Maybe these people are not trapped in the past. Maybe they have simply never felt at home in the most visible parts of the present. Maybe they are not arrogant. Maybe they are just tired of pretending to feel excited about things that mean nothing to them. There is an enormous difference between rejecting the world and simply not recognizing yourself in its loudest version. They do not hate their own generation. They simply cannot find, in its most visible spaces, the things they truly need. Depth, presence, silence that does not need to be filled, conversations that are not constantly interrupted. And when they finally understand this, something changes. The thought is no longer, there is something wrong with me. Instead, it becomes, maybe I simply need a different place in which to exist. There is a simple explanation for this kind of discomfort. When what a person needs on the inside does not match what their environment offers on the outside, a kind of exhaustion begins to grow, an exhaustion that is very difficult to name. Some people function better with silence, stability, and depth. Others feel more alive with speed, novelty, and visibility. Neither way of living is wrong. The problem begins when someone spends all their time trying to live in a way that does not belong to them, simply because they are afraid of being left out. It is like trying to plant the same seed in completely different kinds of soil. Sometimes, the problem is not the seed, it is the ground in which it is trying to grow. There is also a quiet pressure to always be producing something, always improving, always responding, always showing up, always proving that something is happening. As though resting, staying quiet, or simply existing without creating anything visible were some kind of failure. And when someone cannot keep up with that pace, they begin to believe that the problem is their own inability to keep up with the world, when, in reality, it is simply a rhythm that does not fit them. A large part of this also comes from the overwhelming amount of stimulation these people receive every single day. When attention is constantly being pulled toward the next video, the next notification, the next new thing, it becomes increasingly difficult to stay with anything deeper. A long book, an unhurried conversation, a thought followed all the way to the end. It is not a lack of ability, it is an excess of interruption. And then there is the fear of rejection. Being left out never feels like a small detail, it feels like a warning. So, often without even realizing it, many people continue trying to fit into environments that do not suit them, simply because they do not want to feel completely alone. For some people, this discomfort begins on social media. They open an app and find repetitive videos, strong opinions about subjects no one has truly studied, and intense arguments that will be forgotten by the following day. They consume hundreds of videos and remember almost none of them. The pain, in this case, is not a lack of content. It is the overwhelming amount of content that seems to mean absolutely nothing. Others experience this through music. It is not that they hate new songs. They simply miss music that sounds as though it was written by someone who had actually lived through what they were describing. Some songs seem designed only to repeat a single phrase, become a trend for 1 week, and disappear as soon as the next new thing arrives. And there is a difference between hearing a song and actually being moved by it. For others, the discomfort appears in conversations. Someone begins sharing something important, and the other person looks at their phone halfway through the sentence. Someone opens up about what they are going through and receives nothing more than, "That's complicated," followed by an emoji. Friendships disappear at the first sign of discomfort because there always seems to be another option, another person, another group waiting nearby. And little by little, these people begin to understand something. They do not simply want someone to talk to. They want someone who will stay in the conversation. Some also feel this discomfort in the way people seem to have lost patience for understanding one another. When someone is suffering, it is easier to say, "She should have known better," or "He is overreacting," than to genuinely ask what led that person to behave that way. Liking a sad post is not the same as listening to someone. Sending an emoji is not the same as asking what really happened. And then there are those who simply prefer staying at home, not because they hate socializing, but because the most common social activities do not feel right for them. Loud places, parties where almost nobody has a real conversation, gatherings where everyone spends more time looking at their phone than being present with the people around them. They would rather go for a walk, watch a movie with full attention, or have a calm conversation with only a few people. But staying home does not always bring peace. Sometimes, it brings loneliness too. Some of these people try to change themselves, often without even realizing it. They begin laughing at things they do not find funny. They accept invitations they never wanted. They pretend to understand trends, hide their own interests, and avoid deeper conversations because they are afraid of seeming too intense. And the problem, in those moments, is not only being left out, it is abandoning parts of themselves, just to be allowed inside. Each of these people carries a different version of the same feeling. The feeling of being surrounded by others, yet somehow feeling like a stranger among people their own age. Now, notice this sign. The exhaustion of pretending to be excited all the time. Smiling in places that bring no real joy. Saying, "This is going to be fun," while already knowing that it probably will not be. Laughing at a joke they do not find funny, just so they do not seem difficult. Just so they do not seem strange. Just so they are not the person who ruins the mood. And there is another kind of pain. Never knowing whether people truly like you or whether they have simply grown comfortable with the version of you that pretends to be easier to live with. There is also the weight of comparing your own behind-the-scenes reality to everyone else's best moments. Someone opens social media and sees trips, parties, relationships, and groups of friends smiling together. Rationally, they know that everything has been edited, carefully selected, and shown in the best possible light. But the body does not experience it that way. The body feels as though everyone else is living better, faster, with fuller lives and far more to show for them. There is guilt for preferring silence, guilt for enjoying staying at home, guilt for not having an intense social life, for not having countless pictures, stories, and places to talk about when someone asks, "So, what have you been up to lately?" And then, there is the deepest fear of all. The fear of looking back one day and realizing that you never truly lived, that you spent your entire youth trying to fit into plans and environments that never felt right, just so you would not fall behind, just so you would not feel, once again, that distance between yourself and the rest of the world. There is also the almost invisible effort of trying to explain yourself, trying to say, "It's not that I don't like you. It's just that." And then, being unable to find the right words. Because how do you explain that you miss conversations that are not interrupted, music that actually says something, silence that does not need to be filled with noise? It is not easy to put those feelings into words, and when people try, they are often misunderstood. That may be the heaviest part of all. It is not simply feeling different. It is feeling different and still trying to fit into something that was never made for you, simply because the thought of being completely alone feels worse than losing a small part of yourself. But maybe these people were never born into the wrong generation. Maybe they simply do not recognize themselves in the most visible parts of this generation. And there is an enormous difference between those two things. It is not nostalgia for a time they never truly experienced. It is longing for a different way of living. Conversations that are not interrupted by notifications. Relationships that do not feel replaceable. Time to think before answering. Moments that do not need to become content in order to feel meaningful. Being different from your environment does not mean that you are broken, but it does not mean that you are superior to anyone else either. Some people find energy in speed, visibility, and crowded environments. Others need stability, privacy, and depth. Neither way of being is more correct than the other. Suffering begins when someone believes that there is only one correct way to live, and that, because they cannot live that way, they must be the one who is wrong. Maybe growing up is not about learning how to keep up with everyone else. Maybe it is about finally discovering which paths you never wanted to follow in the first place. These people do not need to hate the present in order to find their place within it. They do not need to escape from it completely either. And they do not need to remain trapped in an idealized version of the past, a past that may never have existed in the way they imagine. What they truly need is to stop using the crowd as proof that their own way of living is wrong, and to begin building, even within the present, the things they feel are missing. Slower conversations, smaller, more genuine friendships, silences that do not feel uncomfortable. People who respect their natural rhythm. Maybe you were not born into the wrong generation. Maybe you simply have not yet found the people, the places, and the way of living that truly make sense to you. And if you are listening to this right now, and you have ever felt this way too, leave a comment telling us about the moment you realized that you did not fit in. Which behaviors in today's world bother you the most? Because, honestly, the world today really can feel like a confusing place. I hope this video helped you understand these feelings a little more clearly. This is Everyday Mind.